to me, there are two kinds of songs. There's a song that is just a flat out hit to people. Like to me, Better Dig 2 was that. There's songs like that, but then there's songs that they're sort of those slow burns where you might hear them a third time and you'll go, oh my gosh, I love that song. I get it. Those I pitch over and over and over and over and over, and they finally stick.
Hi everyone, thanks for stopping by the Nashville AIMP Pubcast. I'm your host, Michael McAnally-Vaughn. I'm the secretary of the Nashville Association of Independent Music Publishers, and I'm the president of Smack Songs. Today we're talking to Wrensong Publishing's owner, Ree Guyer. Ree is an industry pro, and we've worked together on some really cool things in the past, most notably Trevor Rosen, the band Old Dominion, and the AIMP Awards, which was her initial idea. She's one of my mentors, and she is the treasurer of the Nashville AIMP.
I didn't even know I was going to be a publisher. I thought I was going to be an agent for these writers that I had met in Minneapolis who wrote commercials. But on the side, they wrote these amazing songs. So I was like, I'm just going to help them. I'll go get their songs heard by people. And the thing I figured out pretty quickly, cold called a bunch of publishers in Nashville, because those doors were really open at the time, and discovered really quickly that they had their own writers and their own songs, and they didn't really want to partner with me. And that was back in the day when tree writers had to write with tree writers and combine writers had to write with combine writers. Nobody co-wrote intercompany wise.
And here you are, bright-eyed from Minneapolis.
Yeah. And so I figured out pretty quickly that the producers were the people that wanted to hear the songs. And every producer's door, there was only about 8 producers when I first came to town. And they were all really easy to get to. You called them and they answered the phone. It was awesome.
So step one, call them. You found that out.
Yeah. And my biggest mentor ended up being Billy Sherrill, who I dropped a cassette off at his office, and he called me literally 15 minutes later and said, "Who are you, and who is this writer, and who are these songs, and get over here, I want to meet you." And he taught me we ended up artist developing the writer-artists that I brought to town.
So now, just so all of our listeners can understand, how many cassette tapes were you dropping off?
To every producer in town. The same cassette to every single producer.
So you were covering all your bases.
And that, I had a song called Little Things that literally opened. I had to figure out who people were and open the doors, but that song opened every door. Great songs, hit songs, open every door. In the 90s, there were 24 record labels, and every record label had minimum probably 15 artists. So back then I did have just writers that wrote and just churned out, just were very prolific and turned out songs. Like I had Sandy Ramos who wrote, Let Her Rip for the Dixie Chicks, and she had a bunch of hits, and she was just a writer. And there were a lot more cuts to be had and a lot more places to pitch.
Yeah.
With 24 labels, there was a lot more. There were just more records being made. So over the years, I developed Cherie Austin, who ended up having a great records on Arista Records, got her deal and helped develop that. And then I worked with Ashley Monroe, developed her, found her when she was 15. She got a record deal at 17. And then John Randall, who, ended up really, I think he had 3 record deals. I got him his last record deal, but he really is an amazing writer. Has gone on to be a great writer. And then most recently with Old Dominion, that we did together.
Yeah.
And now I've got 3 other artists I'm working on.
Let's talk about Old Dominion just briefly, about how we found each other and kind of what the impetus behind really investing in that project was.
Well, the great thing was, Shane produced it and produced an amazing group of 8 songs that we all got behind and we were all excited about. And we pitched them to all the labels, and everybody passed. And in that batch of songs was Say You Do, Wake Up Lovin' You, and Chainsaw, which all we gave away.
Yeah.
And we let other people cut them.
Cut by outside artists. So that's the band Perry, Dierks Bentley, and Craig Morgan. And all 3 were singles.
Yes. And we gave them away because we got passed on. All the labels passed and didn't, said, oh, they're too old, they're too whatever. So we ended up cutting more, and then we decided, well, gosh, we can't stop. We have to keep going. We have to keep doing something.
I felt an obligation to that as their publisher to really give them their best possible opportunity, and it felt like really financing and developing a record label was the way to do that.
Yeah, and to just keep like putting one step in front of the other. We didn't really even know what we were
scary
doing.
Steps.
Yeah, we didn't know what we were doing, but we did very early on get the blessing of John Marks, who said, I will play whatever you want me to play. And that was the door that opened that was like, okay, we got to do
that was on Sirius XM's The Highway. They were put into rotation there. So kind of the first door that opened for Old Dominion. And I think, you had the experience of working with artists and seeing them get a commercial, a way to become commercially viable. It was so new to me. And what was the lesson in that you think our listeners might actually benefit from the most? Like just the way the approach towards Old Dominion and Trevor happened.
Well, I think as a publisher, our job now is artist development. And I think with technology now, we have to open whatever door we can open for them that gets them heard. And it's almost like we're buying an audience. We're finding and buying an audience, and so that we sell it to the labels, sort of.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We are the ones that gather this audience and all the labels are sitting back and watching and going, okay, do they have an audience yet? Okay, yes, I'll invest in them because they have an audience. And the cool thing is that it does all go back to a great song. When we were doing Old Dominion, we put out Dirt on a Road. That was really kind of a polarized song, which is always good because those sell, and it was selling well. Mm-hmm. And then we kind of formed the label and got our team together, and then we put out Shut Me Up, and right sitting there on the EP was Break Up With Them, and everybody said, no, there's your hit, that's your hit, that's your hit, that's your hit, can we have that, can we have that?
Thank goodness we listened.
Yes, and because we're not a major label that cannot turn on a dime, we turned on a dime and said, yeah, take it.
We switched singles,
and
almost unheard of.
The minute that happened, the sales were through the roof.
Yeah. Well, then you've proven it. You've proven your concept.
And it does get all starts with a hit song. Yeah. And it's wild what a hit song does. They take on a life of their own, and they make everybody around them's job easy.
Yes.
Everybody, the manager, the booking agent, everybody's job's easy.
And so what is it? A lot of people that I've interviewed really talk about the feeling they get, their gut feeling when they meet a writer or an artist, and you're like, there's something special there. Is there a way you could put that into words, that aha moment that I want to work, I want to do this?
Well, I've been really fortunate because every writer, artist I've worked with, I had the opportunity to sit with them, and they had a catalog of songs that they were bringing into the deal. For instance, I can give you all the instances, like Burton Collins came in my office and played me How Can I Help You Say Goodbye, the Patti LaBelle song, and I was like, what? You're not leaving my office till we figure out a deal. That's a hit song. John Randall, I met him a year after he didn't have a publishing deal for a year. I met him in the year after he'd written Whiskey Lullaby. He walked to my office, played me Whiskey Lullaby, and was like, what? I was like, do not leave here. We are going to make a deal. And same with Trevor. Trevor and Shane came in and played me Better Dig 2. And I was like, oh my God, we have to do this deal. So I was lucky because most of the writers I've signed have walked in my office and played me a hit song. And I was like, I know that's a hit song. I'm going to make something happen with that.
What is it like pitching songs for outside projects? I know like you're cooking up your own artists, but at the same time, traditional music pitching, music publishing pitching. What does that look like for you now?
Well, I still am in my group, The Chicks with Hits, which is a group of all independent women publishers, and we still get together several times a week, and we're usually now meeting with artists or the artist manager or the producer or the A&R person. So we're still doing that, and that's just a great way to pitch songs, because if you have the artist in front of you, you're really finding out where their headspace is, and you know what to pitch them. Even from like a whole 10 or 15 women playing a song and them saying, no, I don't like to talk about my dad, or I don't, whatever. You just learn a lot from pitching like that. So that still happens. And every once in a while there are label cattle calls that happen where they'll have an artist there and they'll have every publisher in town come through and have 15 minutes to play songs. But mostly, sadly, I'm sitting at my desk and I'm sending MP3s to producers mainly. I've got most of my cuts through producers. So I mainly focus on producers, but a lot of managers now have a song person that just listens for their artists. So that's been something I focus on too.
Well, it's a lot less intensive than carrying cassettes around to everybody.
Yes. I mean, it used to be we would get a new session of the writer, and you'd call everybody and set up meetings over the next 2 weeks and run around and play. I mean, it's very instant now. When you get a new song and you send it to the people you think it's right for, you're going to find out that day, where people, if it's on hold or somebody likes it, or, and sometimes that's where it sticks. And sometimes you're still, pitching it a year later.
Yeah. Do you think the instant nature of the pitch of a song is doing anything to the value of that copyright? Meaning I've noticed it too, that it's harder now for songs, because once they've kind of circulated the first time, it's kind of, how do you broach that with songs? Because you have such an intense catalog.
I have, to me, there are two kinds of songs. There's a song that is just a flat out hit to people. To me, Better Dig 2 was that. It was like, when I played it for people, it was like, okay, that's a hit. It's just a matter of who does it, right?
And you played and pitched that song, and you didn't even publish it.
No, I didn't.
You just loved Trevor and the song.
Yeah. But there's songs like that. But then there's songs that to me, and even for my ears, they're sort of those slow burns where you might hear them a third time and you'll go, oh my gosh, I love that song. I get it. It's more of a slow burn, and they're usually, played. They're usually those ones that on radio they don't burn out. So those I pitch over and over and over and over and over, and they finally stick.
Yeah.
But it's like, literally wear people out with it, because they'll be like, yeah, I've heard this. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know. I think you should take another listen.
Publishers that maybe don't have the experience or the access to you now, what is the best way that they could kind of look to kind of put their writers or their company kind of in your space where you kind of know what they're about and what they're up to?
Well, I think one of the most important things we do as publishers now is networking our writer, is figuring out the right co-writes for a writer. And so I'm really open to knowing who these young people are coming up, because I want to know who they are. ASCAP has a wonderful program called the GPS program that I do every year, and I get a new writer every single month that I meet with and I mentor. And it's a great program. I have signed writers out of that program. Jacob Davis,
Oh, wow.
I
Yeah.
signed out of that program. That's how I met him. And so I really try to keep up on who all the new writers are. And it's kind of like, I think it's also studying who my writers are and approaching me and saying, wow, I really like that new guy you have, Colin Elmore, and wow, I heard him on your website. I think my writer blah, blah, blah would go well with him, sort of doing the research.
Yeah.
And because I've got all my music up on the website and saying, I think my writer so-and-so would go well with him. And then I can go check out that writer.
I do like the approach of even you as a publisher, you're a business too that requires marketing as much as your songwriters do, and you have to have a culture and have an identity. Wrensong needs to be different from Smack than Creative Nation, yet we all might do the same service. We all approach it differently. And how do you go to kind of separate yourself from everybody and just?
Well, I've always wanted to be very boutique-y. I never wanted to have 20 writers. I always wanted to make sure that I gave my writers the best service I could give them. And so I always like to stay around at the most maybe 10 writers and at the least maybe 5.
Yeah.
Because I want to make sure that my writers know that I'm working, really, really hard just for them and that they get a lot of attention. So I really have focused on being very boutique-y. And the benefit to that is that my writers are usually the kind of writer that doesn't jump from deal to deal to deal to deal. They are there because they want to be with me, and they don't even necessarily care about the money. They know they're going to make money with me.
Right.
They don't care about a big advance because they know they're going to make money with me.
Right.
And so that's sort of, I think, how I've separated myself. And every writer that I've ever signed has been with me probably minimum 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
When I get into a relationship.
Well, that's a relationship. So and I guess it goes both with your publishing partners and your associates and your songwriters too. Well, let's talk about you also being involved with the AIMP. How did you find that and get on the board? And
well, it's interesting. They came to town probably, I don't know, like 7 years, a long time ago, and had a luncheon for like people like Frank Liddell and Carla Wallace and me, and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this organization and we're going to network and we're going to do all this stuff. And we all looked at each other and were like, we already do all that. You're going to have to offer something else, And so all of us said no. And there was a group of publishers that did agree to start it up. And they're sort of the founding, like Jewel Coburn and Diana Mayer, I know was very involved, and I think Walter Campbell. So they sort of got it up and going. And then it kind of hit this point where they were like, okay, so now what do we do?
yeah.
And they came to, it was Mark Driscoll at Seagal that called me because he said, I'm going to go be the president. Will you get on the board with me? I'm going to make this more about legislative. We need to be this unit as independent publishers because we're a huge market share.
Right.
And we need to inform our colleagues about what the big guys are doing and what all these issues we have to fight. And so let's make it about that and then try to build the membership.
Yeah.
And they brought me in mainly to build the membership.
Well, you had a really good string of ideas to really inject a lot of activity into the AIMP.
Well, I thought, they were doing the lunches and the panels and things like that, which are great, educational things. But I was like, my goal was, I had a target goal, and my goal was get every independent publisher involved. They all have to know about what this is. And the only way to get them involved is to offer something else to them. So we started that songwriter series. It made the publishers get involved because they wanted their new writers to be a part of it, and they wanted to vote, and they wanted to.
And we're heading into our third year with the Songwriter Series. So there's a class of 2016, a class of 2017, and now we have multiple number one songwriters out of that.
Yes, yeah.
And then you parlayed that into a brilliant idea that I know you definitely sold me on and got me involved with.
Yeah. Then I said, well, gosh, shouldn't we have our own little award show?
And we were ding, 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 ding. Let's do it.
Yeah, because at the BMI, ASCAP, and CSAC, all the big guys always win. We're never going to win, and so luckily you said yes to help, because I think it was a joint vision of, oh my gosh, we could make this a really special little thing. And
it was lofty.
And the whole community embraced it, which was really cool to see. Everybody was like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to do that. I want to vote. I want to be involved, want to be involved. And when I got on the board, there were 80 members.
Yeah.
And now there are 325.
Yeah, active, all active. Independent music publishing. And I think we now enjoy membership from your initial goal to get the whole independent music community involved here.
Yeah, and talking about it, I mean, I think the awards, we didn't really know we didn't know what we were creating. We were just sort of like going out there blind, going, let's just bring everybody together. Let's have a night when we're all together. And you really felt the community.
This Nashville AIMP Pubcast was brought to you by our friends at Anderson Benson Insurance. Experienced, locally owned brokers who take a creative approach to simplifying insurance and risk management. These guys are relationship people, and they have the experience to understand all the aspects of our ever-changing industry. They prepare all their clients, including me, for their next level of success. I have all my insurance accounts with them, and Anderson Benson is an important part of my team. I have cell phone numbers if I have questions, and they're always available to help. Look them up at andersonbenson.com.